Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Shannon Rivkin. This week's video will be on Betmakers, and the title here is Betmakers: Are the Good Times Over After its bid for Tabcorp's wagering division? So I've got a chart here, first thing to show you, which is the price of Betmakers since January the 1st, at around 60 cents here, and then in February when bookmaker of quite some legend, Matt Tripp, was announced as a strategic advisor for the company, and invested $25 million at 70 cents per share. And on top of that as well, was issued many performance bonuses as well, based on certain targets being met. And most of that certainly revolves around doing big strategic deals, which is, I think, the excitement for investors, which was demonstrated immediately after, as the company started to rally pretty hard into this period. Now, probably I would say in the last couple of months, a lot of that rally, certainly, I think above the $1 level, has come as that rumor about a deal with Tabcorp's wagering division started to circulate. Certainly in the press, it's been called the worst kept secret, and to some degree, despite how events have unfolded, I think there was hope from some Betmakers investors that we'd see Tabcorp ultimately buy Betmakers and combine it with that wagering division, as evidence of Matt Tripp's legendary deal-making status, at a time when, for the most part, Tabcorp has been entering sale discussions with many players in the market. Anyway, we've gotten to this period last week where Betmakers announced a $4 billion proposal to buy Tabcorp's wagering division, and we've seen a subsequent sell-off to just above $1 at one point, and with a little bit of a bounce since then, but certainly a 30+% fall at one point. And the question, of course, is where to from now? I think it's important to have a look at the proposal that they did actually announce. So, Betmakers undoubtedly is an exciting story. Its technology is certainly, according to Matt Tripp, is the best in the industry, and it's an incredibly scalable platform that ultimately serves as the back end for many bookmakers out there, and something that, given the relationship that Matt Tripp has in the US with many of the companies over there, was something I think investors and Betmakers thought would be easily rolled out across many operators in the US. But of course, as evidenced by the announcement last week, it looks like part of that focus of Matt Tripp has been actually on doing a deal in Australia, where it would effectively take over an underperforming business owned by Tabcorp, and ultimately the aim of the game there would be to turn around a struggling business rather than that really exciting, high growth, high scalable opportunity in the US. But I should say as well that it looks like the opportunity that they've taken with Tabcorp is poorly conceived as well, and I think that needs to be considered when ascertaining whether Betmakers is a good investment going forward. We're talking about an offer to Tabcorp, a big established company that's already had bids of $3.5 billion for this asset, and being offered $4 billion in total consideration. Only 25% of that is cash, and the other 75% is Betmakers shares. Now, given the chart I've just shown you, Betmakers shares have moved from here to here during that period of time. What would you, as a Tabcorp board, be crazy to consider taking shares that have shown that sort of volatility? And not only that, being offered shares that will ultimately be priced at a 15% premium to the Betmakers share price at that time. It's an incredibly unusual offer. I've never seen anything like it in reality, and I think Betmakers has kind of bet the farm on this deal, but come with a proposal that ultimately I think has no chance of success, and that probably the Tabcorp board is going to be a little bit annoyed by, if anything, given the the serious offers it has on the table. So where to from here? In my view, the deal for Tabcorp is almost certainly off the table. There's probably a small sliver of hope that Matt Tripp uses his magic and kind of turns the table and is able to get Tabcorp to potentially look at buying Betmakers itself, which would obviously see a big fat takeover premium, which may appeal to some people, but possibly not, given the great opportunity for Betmakers ahead. But there's no doubt in the short term this is going to be a big distraction for the company and investors. And I think that that big ascent that we'd seen is certainly going to, I would say, slow down. The story remains exciting, and I think investors will probably come back to the story in time. But to some degree, it shows that Matt Tripp is not just infallible and is incapable of making mistakes, and simply his involvement doesn't mean a company goes from being worth 70 cents one day. Sorry, that's actually it was at this time, but the offer was he got his shares at cheaper, but this was when it was announced. But just simply his involvement doesn't necessarily mean a company is worth over double within a few months. But I think they're going to have to put runs on the board before investors start to back it as it was originally. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you liked it, please click like and subscribe, and I'll be back to you next week with another video.